The sun had fallen low over the jagged horizon of the Arizona desert, throwing long red shadows across the stone. Heat shimmered from the ground, rising like ghosts over the sand. Coyotes were beginning to call from the cliffs, and the wind whispered over the rocks like the breath of spirits. Taza, a young Apache warrior of the Chiricahua band, lay bound beneath a mesquite tree. His wrists and ankles were tied tight with rawhide thongs, cutting into his skin. The pain burned with every twitch, and his mouth was dry from hours in the punishing sun. His captors, white soldiers from Fort Bowie, had left him there after a skirmish in the canyons, thinking he would die before the night fell. They had not wanted to waste bullets. They assumed the desert would finish him. He had fought fiercely that morning, trying to lead his people away through the dry ravines after the cavalry had come upon their camp. But a bullet had grazed his leg, slowing him. When he turned to protect the women and children, the soldiers caught him, beat him, and bound him to a horse. They called him savage, murderer, heathen. They did not understand that he fought for land that was already his, for the right to live where his father's bones lay buried. Now the desert stretched silent around him, empty and vast, painted in red and gold as the day slipped into twilight. He could hear his own heartbeat and the soft hiss of sand moving in the wind. Taza tried to pull at his bonds again, but they only dug deeper. The rawhide was drying in the heat, tightening like iron. Blood trickled down his arms, gathering in dark patches beneath him. As the last light drained from the sky, he whispered to the spirits of his ancestors. He did not fear death. He feared dying alone, unseen. In Apache belief, a warrior who died with no one to sing his spirit home would wander forever. He prayed that the wind itself might carry his voice to his people. The desert night came cold and sharp. The moon rose, pale and large, throwing silver light over the rocks. Far in the distance, something moved. At first, Taza thought it was the wind stirring a bush. Then he saw the glint of eyes, two golden orbs watching from the darkness. His heart tightened. A mountain lion. The animal stepped into the moonlight, moving with silent grace. It was a large male, muscles rolling beneath tawny fur, tail twitching lightly. It must have smelled the blood. Taza stared at it, breathing shallowly. He could not fight, could not flee. If this was the way he would die, he would face it without fear. Among his people, the mountain lion called Nadialad was not merely a beast. It was a spirit of power and courage, a guardian of the high mountains. Some said it walked between worlds, carrying messages from the dead. The lion approached slowly, nose twitching. It circled him once, its breath visible in the cold air. Taza kept his eyes locked on it, not daring to move. The animal came closer, close enough that he could smell the wild musk of its coat. Its eyes reflected the moonlight, ancient, calm, unreadable. It sniffed at the rawhide around his arms, then lifted its head toward the cliffs, listening. For a long moment, man and beast simply watched each other, two survivors of a dying wilderness. Then, to Taza's disbelief, the lion lowered its head again and bit at the rawhide. Its teeth tore the tough leather, jerking it once, twice, until the thong snapped. Taza gasped softly, hardly believing what he saw. The lion's jaws moved again, tearing at the strap around his leg. When it finally broke free, the animal stepped back, muscles tense, watching him. Taza moved his numbed arms slowly, painfully, rubbing at the swollen wrists. He could not understand why the creature had spared him. It should have killed him. Easily. Yet something in its steady gaze told him this was not chance. The Apache believed in signs, in the guidance of animal spirits. Perhaps the lion had come as a messenger from his father, from the mountains, from the spirits that still lingered in the stones. When he tried to stand, his injured leg gave way, and he fell to his knees. The lion let out a low rumble, almost like a growl of warning, and looked toward the east. Then it turned and walked a few paces, stopping to glance back at him. It was as if it wanted him to follow. Taza took a breath, forcing himself up, leaning against the tree until the strength returned to his limbs. Slowly, painfully, he followed the lion's path. They moved through the night, the great cat always a few steps ahead, pausing when Taza stumbled, waiting when he fell behind. It led him through a narrow canyon where the rocks shone pale under the moon. Water glimmered faintly ahead, a small spring hidden among the stones. The lion crouched to drink, then lifted its head as if offering the water to Taza. The warrior fell beside it, cupping the cool liquid in his hands, drinking deeply. Life returned to him with each swallow. When he looked up again, the lion was gone. Taza remained by the spring until dawn, resting his battered body and binding his wounds with strips of cloth torn from his leggings. He could not stop thinking of the animal, how its eyes had seemed almost human, how its teeth had freed him instead of ending him. He felt the weight of something larger than himself, something sacred. When the morning light rose over the desert, he began the long walk back toward his people. His tribe had scattered into the hills after the attack. He knew the secret trails, the signs his kin would leave carved into stone or shaped with branches. For 2 days he walked, eating cactus fruit, sleeping beneath the stars, his leg throbbing with pain. Each time he faltered, he thought of the lion's eyes, and strength returned to him. On the 3rd morning, he found them a small camp hidden in a canyon near the dry riverbed. His sister, Nalan, was the first to see him. She cried out and ran to him, her face wet with tears. They had believed he was dead. His mother came next, old and trembling, whispering prayers of thanks to the spirits. Even the chief, old Mongoose, who rarely showed emotion, placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "You have walked back from the shadow world, Taza. The spirits have not finished with you." That night the tribe built a fire and listened as Taza told the story. He spoke of the soldiers, of the desert, of the lion that had come in the moonlight. The people sat in silence. When he finished, the medicine man, Nich, rose slowly. "The mountain lion," he said, "is a warrior's guardian. It is power, cunning, and endurance. It freed you because you still have a path to walk. You were not meant to die bound. You were meant to lead." From that night forward, they called him Nadilidi So, he who walks with the lion. He carried that name into the years that followed, years of flight, of battles, of sorrow. The war between the Apache and the white soldiers continued. Villages burned, families scattered. But wherever Taza went, he carried a sense of calm, a belief that he was guided. He began to lead raids with uncanny precision, knowing where the soldiers would ride, when to strike, when to vanish. His people said the lion walked beside him in spirit, whispering warnings in his dreams. Once, during a raid near the San Simon Valley, Taza and his warriors were trapped by a troop of cavalry in a box canyon. As gunfire echoed off the stone walls, and the air filled with smoke, a mountain lion's roar split the air above them. The soldiers, horses panicked, rearing and throwing their riders. Taza seized the moment, leading his people through a hidden cleft in the rock that none but he knew. They escaped without losing a man. Afterward, his men said they saw a lion's shape running along the ridge in the moonlight, watching over them. Years passed. The war ended, as all wars do, not with victory but with exhaustion. The surviving Chiricahua were forced onto reservations, far from their homeland. Taza, older now, carried the memories of blood and sand like stones in his heart. Yet even in the confinement of the reservation, he would sometimes see the mountain lion at the edge of the hills, watching silently. It never came close, never again touched his life as it had that night, but its presence reminded him that freedom could not be tied or taken. One winter evening, many years later, when his hair had turned gray and his hands had grown unsteady, Taza sat outside his small dwelling, looking toward the setting sun. The desert beyond the fences glowed red as embers. He closed his eyes and remembered the feel of the rawhide cutting his wrists, the sting of blood, the shimmer of moonlight on fur. He wondered if the lion had been real, or if the spirits had simply taken that shape to save him. It did not matter. The meaning was the same.